first I thought myths were just legends and space was science, but step-by-step discoveries broke down that boundary. The legends spoke of celestial ships, and we are picking up strange signals from space. In ancient tombs, giant capsules not meant for humans have been discovered, and we see vanished stars. It all turned out to be connected, and after this video, it's impossible to look at history the same way as before. Hello, my friend? You're on the Kurtop channel. A cosmic owl in the depths of space is looking right at us. Two glowing eyes on a black background, and this is no illusion. James Webb captured the collision of two ring galaxies, something so rare that the chance of seeing it is less than winning all the lotteries at once. A mass of 320 billion suns. In the center, two black holes devouring matter and flashes of new worlds being born. Scientists say it's just a merger. But why do we see the image again? Why does the universe form eyes, symbols, signs? Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's a message and a question. Who left it? Signals from the depths of the galaxy. In 1977, the Vega radio telescope caught a signal that lasted only 72 seconds. The scientist who noticed it wrote one word on the printout: wow. And to this day, no one has explained where it came from. Today we are recording hundreds of mysterious bursts, fast radio bursts or FRBs. They last for fractions of a second, but their power exceeds the energy of an entire galaxy. Sometimes they repeat, as if someone on the other end is trying to make contact. Scientists call these anomalous natural phenomena, but the truth is we don't know their source. And if it's not nature, then who exactly is trying to reach us right now? Across billions of light years, traces of fire beneath megaliths, under many ancient megalithic structures, archaeologists find charred layers, but these are not remnants of campfires. The temperature was too high for ordinary people to have created it. In some places, the stones are melted, as if they were exposed to plasma from a powerful energy source. In Pumapunku, in Tiwanaku, in Bolivia, on the basalt slabs, there are marks as if they were cut with a red-hot tool. In Egypt, melted edges of blocks are recorded where there should be neither fire nor volcanism. Scientists explain this as random natural processes, but the temperature clearly exceeded the level of any natural fire. There are too many coincidences, as if in ancient times energy was used that was comparable to modern plasma cutting, or even more powerful. Then megaliths stop being tombs or ritual structures. They become traces of work with technologies that people simply didn't have. The second sun is a theory that our sun has a dark twin. Scientists called it Nemesis, after the goddess of retribution. This hypothetical star has never shown itself to us directly, but astronomers have noticed an alarming pattern. Mass extinctions on Earth occur with frightening regularity, about every 26 million years. And if you trace the dates, it turns out that it's as if an invisible force, once every certain cycle, sends a deadly rain of comets and asteroids toward Earth. According to one theory, it was Nemesis that was responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs. Its orbit takes it far beyond the boundaries of the solar system and then brings it back, destabilizing billions of icy bodies in the Oort cloud. Most of them fly off into the void, but some head toward us. And every time this cycle repeats, Earth experiences a catastrophe on a planetary scale. Officially, this is just a hypothesis. But if Nemesis exists, it means we never had just one sun, and all of humanity has lived in a binary star system without even knowing it. And then the question becomes much tougher. If we have a second sun, could it actually be the true master of our fate? Venus is a planet that breathes. If Mars is called our potential second home, then Venus is called hell, everything there is against life. The heat is nearly 500 degrees, and the pressure is like being kilometers deep under a cloud of sulfuric acid. But in 2020, the world was shocked by the news that phosphine was discovered in Venus's atmosphere. On Earth, it appears in two cases, in the laboratory and as a byproduct of living organisms. Back in the 1970s, Soviet probes transmitted mysterious images showing objects that looked like rocks which changed their positions. Scientists quickly blamed everything on equipment defects. But after the discovery of phosphine, many people remembered these photos, and now the question sounds different. What if there is life on Venus? Not the kind we're used to, but a different kind. one that has learned to survive in acidic clouds and use poison like air. If there is life where it shouldn't exist, then our Earth is not a unique miracle. We are not an exception. We are just one of the forms that happen to survive on its own planet. Mars is our second home. It seems that soon we really will reach Mars. SpaceX is already building rockets for flights. National Aeronautics and Space Administration is testing life support systems, and China is preparing for its own missions. The news is full of ambitious plans. The first people will land on the red planet in the coming decades. Colonies, domes, resource extraction, greenhouses, it all sounds like the beginning of a new era, but Mars also has its dark sides. Radiation will kill a person. In just a few months, the atmosphere is almost entirely made up of carbon dioxide, and sandstorms can last for weeks. To survive there, humanity must do more than build bases. They'll need to reinvent the very concept of life. This isn't moving to a new Earth, it's existing on a hostile planet. And yet the main question is different. What if we won't be the first ones there? Photos from the Mars rovers keep sparking debates. Strange rock formations that look like ruins. Objects resembling statues or mechanisms. Scientists call this pareidolia, a feature of our brain that makes us see familiar shapes. But if even some of these discoveries are real, then the history of Mars might seem much richer. And maybe when we get there, we won't be building a new home. We'll just be returning to an old one. Martian coral. On July 24, 2025, the Curiosity rover sent back an image that made scientists freeze for a moment. A rock with a shape all too familiar to us from Earth. It looked like coral, a real fossilized coral, evidence that an ocean full of life might once have splashed on Mars. National Aeronautics and Space Administration was quick to offer an explanation. No biology involved, just minerals that took on a strange shape due to water and wind erosion. A rock, not an organism. Our brain fills in familiar images where there are none. The official explanation sounds logical, too logical. But how many times have we heard the same thing? A rock just happens to look like a statue. A shadow just happens to look like a tower. A shape just happens to resemble the outline of a living creature. At what point does the number of these coincidences become proof? Maybe it really is just nature's play. Or maybe we're simply not ready to hear the truth yet. The main thing is that Mars was alive, and that's exactly why we're so drawn to it. Because deep down, we're coming back home. The moon itself and its mysteries. We're used to thinking of the moon as something simple. The night satellite is a beautiful disk in the sky, but the more we study it, the stronger the feeling that something isn't right here. To begin with, the moon is too large for a satellite. Its diameter is almost a quarter of Earth's. Neither Jupiter nor Saturn nor Neptune has anything like this. It's an anomaly. Moreover, the moon's orbit is almost perfectly circular. Natural bodies don't behave like that. They move in ellipses, but here, it's as if someone adjusted its trajectory. Moving on. The craters, the impact basins on the moon, are huge, but not a single one is deeper than 4 kilometers. Even the most colossal collisions didn't break through the crust. Why does it seem like there's an invisible armor beneath the surface? In the 70s, Soviet engineers openly said the moon behaves as if it's hollow, and confirmation came in a National Aeronautics and Space Administration experiment when they deliberately crashed a module onto the moon. The satellite started to vibrate, not for a minute, not for 2, but for 2 hours. The moon rang like a bell. That's exactly how it was recorded in the reports. But stone doesn't behave like that. That's how a hollow structure behaves. The oddities don't end there. We only ever see one side of the moon. Scientists call this tidal locking. But why did this happen only here? Why is it that our satellite is forever turned to us with only one side? And why is the dark side so different? Scarred, destroyed, as if it went through an ancient cratera? And then there are the flashes. They've been observed for decades, bright lights that appear on the surface, sometimes for a whole minute. National Aeronautics and Space Administration keeps a catalog, but there's no answer. Gas, volcanism, or operating machinery? In 2019, a new discovery was announced. Under the moon's southern crater, they found something massive, an object causing gravitational distortions. Scientists cautiously suggested that maybe it's an asteroid stuck in the core, but it's strange that the moon withstood it without breaking apart. And all this brings to mind the hypothesis of Vassin and Sherbakov. What if the moon is artificial? According to their version, It's not a satellite, but an ancient mechanism with a metallic shell, cavities inside, and possibly equipment. It's science fiction, yes, but the facts stubbornly refuse to fit into a natural picture. The Mars archives say a lot about Mars, but there's one strange coincidence. Almost all ancient peoples mention the red star in their legends as the place where the gods lived or where they came from. The Sumerians associated it with the god of war, Indian epics with heavenly chariots, and the Egyptians even called it the place of wanderers. Modern researchers add fuel to the fire. Back in the 70s, rumors reached Earth about secret photos from orbit, where the ruins of cities could supposedly be seen. Officially, these photos were never published, and those that are available today raise new questions. Mars looks like a huge library, its pages written with billions of years of history, but we can only see the cover. Fiery teachers. In the iconography of different eras and peoples, there is a strange coincidence. The figures of gods, prophets, and teachers of humanity are almost always surrounded by a radiance. The Egyptians had solar discs above their heads. The Maya had halos in the shape of flames. Byzantine iconography featured golden circles around the face. And in India, there were entire auras of fire. The official version sounds simple. It's a symbol of divinity, holiness, and inner light. But there are too many details that make you think. On Mesopotamian reliefs, the gods are depicted in garments from which rays seem to emanate. In Peruvian frescoes, the radiance is not smooth, but shown as straight lines, as if from a source of light. And in texts, it is sometimes stated directly that they shone so brightly that people could not look at them. Is this just a description of an aura, or is it actually the light of something material? Lamps, spotlights, helmets. In some images, it's noticeable that the rays come not from the head, but from an object that resembles a helmet or a mask. The Sumerian gods have enlarged eyes, as if behind a transparent visor. In Indian descriptions, the gods descend in shining shells, where their bodies are not burned by the heat. To the modern ear, this sounds like spacesuits. If you put all these fragments together, the picture becomes different. The fiery teachers could have been real beings who descended to people in protective suits and with sources of light. For ancient people, it was a miracle. For us, it's technology. Life in icy oceans. When searching for life, we've always looked at Mars. But perhaps the most promising worlds are even farther away. Beneath layers of ice, Europa, Enceladus, Ganymede. These moons look like silent white spheres, but beneath their surfaces are oceans, tens of kilometers deep. They have everything: water, heat from internal sources, and the chemical elements necessary for life. On Enceladus, the Cassini spacecraft detected geysers shooting into space, and organic molecules were found in them. On Europa, there are cracks where clouds of vapor occasionally erupt, and if there really are oceans raging beneath the ice, then it's the perfect environment for life to develop. Maybe they're similar to Earth's squids or jellyfish, or maybe they're completely different, with shapes and organic matter unlike anything we know. Scientists cautiously say there's a high chance of habitability, but we understand that if there really is life there, it won't just be another discovery. It will be an encounter with beings that have lived for millions of years in isolation, in another ocean, under a different sky. And then the solar system will stop seeming like it's ours. It will become shared. Silicon-based beings. We are all used to thinking that life is based on carbon. It is carbon that became the foundation for molecules, DNA, proteins, and all living things on Earth. But what if this is just one of the possibilities? Scientists have long discussed the idea of silicon-based life. Silicon is also an element capable of forming strong chains and complex structures, but these structures would be different, more rigid, crystalline possibilities, unlike organic ones. There is a hypothesis that under conditions of high temperature and pressure, where carbon-based life is destroyed, silicon-based life, on the contrary, could thrive. Imagine a world where living beings are translucent formations resembling stones, which grow, feed on minerals, and transmit information through vibrations. We would mistake such an organism for an ordinary stone and wouldn't even suspect that it's alive. What's especially troubling is that probe data sometimes shows anomalies that are hard to fit into carbon-based models. Scientists don't talk about living crystals seriously, but such theories do appear in classified reports. And If silicon-based life exists, it means one thing: we could have been walking among it for millions of years, not realizing that these stones aren't stones at all. DNA that doesn't match. We're used to thinking that the human genetic code has been studied inside and out, but in reality, there are still mysteries in our DNA that no one can answer. Scientists call them unexplained insertions, fragments that don't match the information sequence. They don't resemble primate DNA, known viral traces, or random mutations. It's as if these pieces of code came from somewhere outside. There is a hypothesis that some of these sequences could have entered us through ancient contacts with viruses, or even with extraterrestrial organisms. It sounds fantastic, but in recent years, the idea of panspermia has been openly discussed in scientific journals. Life could have been brought to Earth by meteorites or comets, and if that's the case, then it's possible that part of our genetic code is alien. Some researchers go even further. They claim that there are structures in the human genome that are too orderly to be a coincidence, as if someone left a mark, a genetic watermark. Naturally, official science does not support such claims, but the very idea that an alien trace could be encoded in us turns our understanding of humanity upside down. And then we have to ask the question, who are we really? The result of random evolution, or carriers of a message left by someone who lived long before us? There are missions that are not officially discussed. Space is transparent. Every National Aeronautics and Space Administration or European Space Agency mission is announced in advance. Everyone knows the launch dates, routes, and objectives. But in reality, there are gaps in the history of space exploration that no one is in a hurry to explain. There are mentions in the archives of spacecraft that were never presented to the public. They were launched from military ranges without press releases or television broadcasts. Officially, they were communication satellites or for atmospheric reconnaissance. Strange lines come up, searching for anomalies, recording unidentified sources. In the 1970s, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics supposedly launched devices that were supposed to photograph the dark side of the moon in high resolution, but the results were classified. In the United States, there were talks that separate reconnaissance probes could have been sent to Mars not to search for water, but to look for objects. Why are all these missions being kept so secret? If nothing was found, they could show it was empty, but classifying the data suggests something was there. It changes the rules of the game, something that's more convenient to keep in boxes marked classified for now. And the question arises, maybe we already know much more about life in the universe than we think. Only this information is carefully rationed. Aliens inside the Earth. When we talk about extraterrestrial life, we look up at the sky. We wait for signals from Mars, Venus, Jupiter's moons, or distant galaxies. But there is a much more disturbing theory. We should be searching not above, but below. Hundreds of kilometers beneath the Earth's crust, there are zones that humans have never seen. There are no direct observations there, only indirect data from seismology and magnetic anomalies. Scientists have recorded strange bursts of heat that cannot be explained by magma movement. And in some places, mysterious sources of radiation are detected where they shouldn't be. And then, there are the myths. Ancient legends spoke of underground gods, of beings that lived in the depths of the earth and would occasionally come to the surface. In the 20th century, this idea was revived by the Hollow Earth hypothesis, secret expeditions of the Third Reich to Antarctica, and stories about entrances to underground worlds at the North and South Poles. Science considers this a wild fantasy. But then why do many geophysical anomalies still remain unexplained? Modern ufologists claim that some UFOs do not come from outer space at all. They emerge from the oceans, from underground, from cracks and faults, as if their real base is not in distant stars, but right here on our planet. If that's true, a chilling thought comes up. While we look for neighbors in space, our real neighbors may have been living below us all along. And perhaps it is they who decide how much we are allowed to know about the universe. Islands that don't exist. The history of cartography is full of mysteries. Old sea maps from the 17th and 18th centuries show islands that don't exist today. Hundreds of sailors swore they saw land, went ashore, even described plants and animals. But decades later, these islands disappeared, and modern satellites confirm that there is only empty ocean in those marked places. The most famous example is Sandy Island in the Coral Sea, which was marked on maps for almost 200 years. In 2012, Australian researchers decided to double-check the location and found nothing. Not a patch of land, not a trace of a reef, just a depth of 1.5 kilometers. How do we explain the hundreds of captains' records? Was it mass hallucination or a simultaneous mistake? There are dozens of these cases. The Brabant, Frederick, and Emerald Islands, which existed for centuries and suddenly disappeared. Scientists attribute all of this to measurement errors. But sailors left detailed reports with drawings describing the flora and fauna. Either all global navigation was mistaken for centuries, or we are dealing with a phenomenon for which we simply have no explanation. There are theories that these were not islands, but objects that could rise from the water and then sink back into the depths, possibly volcanic formations, or perhaps something else. Some ufologists believe that these could have been bases or ships of giants. There are strange notes in 19th and 20th century archives about land and giant skeletons. Skeletons up to 3 meters tall were found in burial mounds in North America. In the archives, archaeologists spoke of jaws and skulls that were too large for a human, but almost all such finds disappeared. Some blamed the churches, others blamed government institutions that were erasing inconvenient evidence. Myths of different peoples repeat the same thing. The Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, tall as towers, their Nephilim, the sons of God, who took earthly women for themselves. Native American tribes told stories about battles with giants who came from the sky and fed on human flesh. Scientists explain these legends as fantasies and mistakes. But why does this motif appear among peoples who are not connected to each other? And why is it always associated with the sky and the gods? If giants really existed, then they could have been a different branch of humanity or hybrids of humans and aliens. In that case, the history of our planet is not only the evolution of Homo sapiens, but also coexistence with those who were much bigger and stronger. Portals in space. Physics allows for the possibility that space-time can fold into tunnels, wormholes, which connect points in the universe directly, bypassing millions of light years. On paper, this is the Einstein-Rosen theory. In reality, it's still just equations, but there are too many hints suggesting that these corridors might exist. Astronomers occasionally observe strange phenomena, bursts of radiation that disappear in fractions of a second, and in different parts of space almost synchronously, as if the signal didn't travel the usual path but jumped instead. Officially, such anomalies are called interference or rare processes in pulsars. But what if these are markers of working portals? Legends also have their own versions. The Sumerians described the gates of the gods, while the Maya mentioned celestial paths used by star brothers to return. Tibetan texts contain descriptions of doors between worlds that open only on certain days. Amazingly, the ancients spoke of the same thing, the possibility of instant transition to places where an ordinary path is impossible for a civilization that has learned to control such structures. The galaxy ceases to be boundless. There is no need for thousand-year journeys on giant ships. It's enough to step into the right place and emerge at another star. Then, the unidentified flying object phenomenon becomes understandable. They don't have to fly from far away. They simply arrive. There's only one question. If such portals already exist, where are their entrances? Maybe they're hidden in black holes. Maybe in the depths of the ocean. Or maybe right here on Earth, in those very places of power that have always been considered forbidden, alien artifacts on Earth. History preserves discoveries that don't fit into any chronology. In Turkey, at the temple complex of Göbekli Tepe, there are columns with carvings of animals and abstract symbols. They are about 12,000 years old. Officially, at that time, people didn't know agriculture or architecture yet. But here we see engineering design and symbolism that hasn't been fully deciphered. Who built this complex and why? Later, it was buried, as if someone tried to hide it, like in South America, in Sacsayhuaman. The giant stone blocks are fitted together so tightly that you can't even fit a blade between them. Stones weighing hundreds of tons are laid with perfect precision, and they have polygonal faces. Modern technology can barely replicate such joints. So, 500 years ago, the Incas had something they themselves called the technology of the gods. On the other side of the world, in Baalbek, Lebanon, there is a stone known as the Southern Megalith. and it weighs over 1,000 tons. No one has explained how ancient builders could have moved it, but the fact remains that this block was worked on, and it was clearly intended for construction. The only question is, by whose hands? Similar discoveries include the Ural metal spirals, the megalithic platforms of Tiwanaku, and the perfectly drilled holes in the stones of Egypt, which give the impression of work done by high-precision machinery. Every culture has artifacts that seem to have been invented out of their time. Scientists explain this with primitive technologies, coincidence, and the play of nature. But then why do such coincidences repeat all over the planet in different eras and among different peoples? The theory that these are traces of aliens is convenient not because it's sensational, but because too many things start to fit into one picture. And if these really are artifacts, the purpose could have been simple: to show that we are not the first, and that everything we build today is just a faint echo of what was already here thousands of years ago. Stars that disappeared. In 2019, astronomers published the results of a decade-long project comparing old and new sky catalogs. Thousands of stars that were observed in the mid-20th century were no longer in the same places. Some had faded, others simply disappeared, as if they were erased. The official explanation sounded cautious: observational errors, supernovae that were missed, or variable stars with atypical cycles. But the problem is that some of these stars couldn't have disappeared so quickly. The story of Tabby's star object, Kepler, input catalog 846852 in the constellation Cygnus, became especially well known. Its brightness would drop by tens of percent and then return, as if something enormous was blocking the light. This can't be explained by planets or dust clouds. The theory that sends chills down your spine was simply called a megastructure, an artificial construction the size of a star system that collects energy from its star. Scientists refer to this as the Dyson sphere hypothesis, a swarm of satellites that only a civilization at least 10 times more advanced than ours could build. It once seemed like science fiction, but recurring star disappearances and odd brightness drops keep scientists revisiting this idea. If even some of these cases are real, it means there are civilizations in the universe capable of harnessing the energy of entire stars, and they are leaving traces that we are already seeing. Dark matter is dark. We can't see 90% of the universe. Everything we know, stars, planets, galaxies, is just a small part. The rest scientists call dark matter and dark energy. We know it exists. Its gravity keeps galaxies from falling apart. Its influence is felt in space, but we don't know what it's made of. The most troubling thing about this is that dark matter is invisible to our instruments. It passes through us, through the Earth, through every atom, and we don't feel a thing. Within the dark framework, there are worlds we simply overlook. Some physicists suggest that dark matter might interact with itself, forming complex systems, which means there could be something like dark biology, life existing in another phase of reality, not made of carbon, not made of silicon, but of something that has no form for us at all. Then our familiar world is just a thin layer on the surface of a deeper universe, and it's possible that right now we are surrounded by this invisible life. It moves nearby, passes through the city's walls, looks at us, and we aren't even able to understand what exactly surrounds us. And in this case, the question sounds harsher than usual. What's scarier, to meet aliens on another planet or to find out that they've been living next to us all along, just in another layer of our reality? If we add water, we're used to thinking that life requires one simple ingredient, water. And then the temptation arises. What if we bring it to places where it doesn't exist? The Moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, 4 different stories with different endings. On the Moon, there's already water in the form of ice at the poles, hidden in the eternal darkness of craters. Add oceans, and we'd see a planet with turbulent tides. But the Moon is too small to hold on to an atmosphere. The water would quickly evaporate into space, leaving only a short-lived sea. The Moon won't become a second home. It will remain a dead desert, only temporarily shining. Mars looks more promising. There are glaciers there, and there was water in ancient times. If we fill it with oceans, the planet will come alive, the air will become denser, and the climate will change. But Mars isn't protected by a magnetic field, and the solar wind will gradually strip away its atmosphere. Any new Earth we create will be temporary. Within a few thousand years, water will escape into space again. Venus shows the opposite case. If you add water to a place with hellish heat and acidic clouds, it will boil instantly, creating an ocean of steam. The greenhouse effect will intensify. The temperature will rise even higher. It's impossible to flood Venus with water. It will only destroy it. To bring this world to life, you first need to cool it down and destroy its dense atmosphere, a task that's almost impossible. Mercury is an extreme case, the closest planet to the Sun, with a scorching surface and icy shadows in its craters. Water won't stay there. During the day it will boil, at night it will freeze, and eventually it will evaporate into space. Mercury is too close to the Sun to sustain life, and then it becomes clear that simply adding water is not the solution. Only Earth turned out to be that unique platform where water can remain and support life. The other worlds are too unstable, too small, and water. There is not a source of life, but a reminder of how delicate the balance on our planet really is. The Great Migration. In the legends of many peoples around the world, the same motif is repeated: heavenly ships carrying people away to other worlds. In the myths of America, they spoke of the serpent god Kukulkan, who came from the sky and just as suddenly returned, taking the chosen ones with him. In Asia, there were mentions of chariots that lifted heroes to the sky alive. Even in the biblical tradition, the prophet Elijah ascended in a fiery chariot, and no one saw him again. In such stories, it's usually said to be an allegory, but the description is just too straightforward. In Indian epics, ascension is accompanied by sounds, smoke, and flames, as if it's about a real device. In Chinese legends, the souls of the chosen ones were taken onto ships, from which they never returned. For ancient people, this looked like moving to other worlds. For us today, it's like a selection and evacuation program. There's a theory that these ascensions were not metaphors about the spiritual world at all, but direct descriptions of contact. That some people were taken onto ships, possibly to preserve experiments or to relocate them to other planets. That's why different peoples have this strange feeling that the best, the most special ones disappear, go up to the sky, and the tombs are not meant for people. Archaeologists are used to interpreting everything within familiar frameworks. If there's a stone box, it's a sarcophagus. But in Egypt and Peru, there are burials that don't fit the human scale. In Saqqara, there are granite boxes weighing 60-70 tons, crafted with jewelry-like precision. But inside, they are so huge that a single human body would look tiny in them, and it would be uncomfortable for several people. Why are they so big? On the other side of the world, in the Andes, tiny stone sarcophagi have been found. Their proportions so small that an adult body simply wouldn't fit inside. The official version is that these are children's burials, rituals, but then why were they crafted with the same skill as royal tombs? Another mystery is the emptiness. Many of these sarcophagi contain no traces of burial, no bones, no funerary items, as if they were never used as tombs. And then the theory arises that these are not tombs, but capsules, containers in which those who were not human were once stored or transported, too big, too small, different. Maybe this is where the answer lies as to why the myths of almost all peoples speak of stones, bones, myths, and stars that came from the sky, all coming together into one mosaic. We are only a part of a much bigger story, and the question remains, not whether they exist, but when will they return again? Thank you for watching this video until the end. Goodbye, everyone.